Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Madam 81. I'm back with you again. Basically, this is just a little rebuttal for Mayor Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago. And let me start off by saying I love Chicago. I got nothing but love for Chicago. But cut the crap, man. Like I'm not feeling the mayor. Just pretty much like I'm not feeling the mayor where I live at. So is nothing biased. I'm not coming for the shy. I love the shy. Mad love and respect to the shy. But it was just some things that were contradictory that I had to point out that he did. Mayor Emanuel did an interview with Wolf Blitzer on CNN, and it was just I just had to make a rebuttal. So please allow me to present my case, and then we're going to talk about it throughout, and we're going to talk about it at the end. All right, guys? So sit back, relax, get you a nice drink, maybe get you a snack, and let's get into this.
Jesse Smollett having only seen a sliver of the evidence. So how do you explain this truly dramatic reversal today?
I can't. It's that simple, and no offense anybody else explain it. Because if it was easy to be explained, the state's attorney's office would have been out explaining it. And here's my basic anger. There is no sense from this person who now, the state's attorney said, committed the actual crime here, or actually the hoax. There's no sense of contrition, no sense of remorse. The fact is, Wolf, in this act, he not only obviously all the resources of police to investigate and get to the bottom of a alleged hate crime that turned out to be a hoax. That's the financial problem. But then taking all the notions of what hate crimes and the reason we have those laws on the books is to protect people of faith, racial background, sexual orientation, that they cannot be a victim of a crime, a violent crime of any nature, because of who they are, what they believe, or how they, who they love. And he used that for his self-promotion. The state's attorney's office itself, and I accept Ms. Fox's view that she has recused herself, but the office says that he is wrong. He actually committed the crime. There is a hoax here. But then he's walking around like he's exonerated with no sense of remorse or contrition. And he's taken that law, turned it upside down, inside out, and used it for himself. What happens to the young man who wants to, in the future, come forward because he has been a victim of a hate crime, or somebody at a place of employment where there's actually a noose left at their desk or at their locker? Are they going to be not willing to come forward because they're going to be questioned? All because of who he is, caught everybody by surprise, and he all of a sudden gets off with 2 days of service. So, well, I want to ask you a question. Yeah. You and I are both Jewish. If on your front door there was a swastika or mine, and it found out weeks later, after all the empathy, that either you or I had put that swastika on our door, we would get off with 2 days of service at the Anti-Defamation League? Really? That's what would happen here?
So why do you think the Cook County prosecutor then went ahead and dropped these charges?
I cannot answer that question. The state's attorney, the head of the state's attorney has recused herself. I cannot answer the question for what the office.
Did they consult with? Did they inform you in
No.
advance that this was about to happen? Because all of us know what's been going on over these past several weeks.
No, I mean, not only did they not inform myself, the fact is, when we came off the stage after the largest police graduation and promotion, find out about what's happening here, to me, it makes no sense. It makes no legal sense, no common sense, and this is abomination in my sense of justice. The notion that they say he's guilty of this hoax, he's walking around, I did nothing wrong. And you literally taken a law, and all of us who work on getting the hate crime legislation, the Matthew Shepard legislation, passed and signed into law. Because it finally meant to the United States that the values we share, that you cannot be a victim of a crime, a violent crime, to boot, because of your faith, your background, your race, or who you love. And then he used those laws and those sentiments that bind us together as a community and society, that say we will stand behind it. And he used it to promote his own career.
So,
And then he's walking around as if he has done nothing wrong.
you clearly
And that to me
are calling out Smollett, but Smollett didn't take responsibility because the prosecutor, the specific Cook County prosecutor, Joseph Magatz, didn't demand it in order to drop the charges. What do you have to say about this prosecutor, Joseph Magatz?
Well, I think the prosecutor's office, the office needs to explain the why. I can't do that for you, but I can speak for the people of the city of Chicago. This person, you know, the actor, used the city, came here from New York to acted like there was a crime committed. Our police went diligently. Our law enforcement worked tirelessly to uncover a hate crime and find out who perpetuated it, and we found out it's a hoax. Now remember, and I want to get back to this, all the evidence, or not all of it, a portion of the evidence, was shown to a grand jury, and they came back with all the charges. The same officer then dropped it. It makes no sense.
So with the full picture, let me ask you this, Mayor. With the full picture painted by the evidence, perhaps not as compelling as what was presented to the grand jury.
It was compelling enough. Well, wait a second. The evidence presented to the grand jury is what brought the charges.
But did new questions arise in the subsequent weeks for more evidence that might be out there?
That's not what the state's attorney just said today. They said, in fact, the police did a good job, and the evidence holds up, and he actually did commit the hoax. They're saying $10,000 and 2 days of community service is good enough. And I don't believe, not only is it not good enough, especially when he's walking around thinking that he is actually innocent, not guilty, and B, he's innocent not only legally in a criminal justice sense, he is also guilty, in my view, of a moral crime, which is to use the hate crimes to advance his own career for selfish reasons. And that, to me, is where there's a moral violation and a rip, because he went out and spoke on ABC to the country as an African American and a gay man about being a victim of a crime. And then what comes forward, and what we actually now know to be the case, and even the state's attorney today acknowledged, is the fact that that was all a hoax. And there's a moral violation, let alone a violation of the code of criminal justice, that here's a person who now believes with $10,000, 2 days of community service and Operation Push, the Floyd claimed he did nothing wrong. In fact, his word is true. And I'm just telling you, if he was anybody else, and this is what is upsetting people in the city and around the country, he has one law or one kind of standard of accountability, and everybody else gets another. And that's wrong. And the problem we're having today is everybody thinks if you're in a position of power or a position of influence, there's two rule books, one for everybody else and one for the people of influence. And this is a horrible example of if he wasn't an actor, you really think this is 2 days of community service would be enough. You really think that?
The Cook County prosecutor, Joseph Magatz, says the decision to drop the charges, in his words, is not all that unusual. Let me get your reaction to that.
I'm not a lawyer, thank God. I can't tell you if it's not unusual or unusual. But let me say this. If it was so usual, why is everybody acting like it's unusual? And in your own reporting leading up to this, in a bizarre turn and an unusual turn, it is not usual. It's not a pattern. The fact is, if it wasn't for the fact that he is an actor with influence and capacity to have influence, you would not get off with 2 days of community service and Operation Push. And you would get off if we found out that, or I would not get off, we found out I put on my front door a swastika with all the symbolism of what that means to the Jewish people, and we found out for my own career, I put that on the door, or you for your own career put that on. You think 2 days of work community service at ADL, the slave would be clean, it would all be sealed. The other thing is, let us not forget this, folks. He said he wanted his day in court for all the evidence to come forward. The grand jury only heard a portion of it. If he wanted that, as he claimed, let's have that day, let's unseal the documents, we'll go to court, and we'll see what really happened here. But the fact is, he's walking away, no remorse, no contrite, doesn't believe he did anything wrong, and he used the laws that are the hate crime laws to advance his own career, and he got caught at it, and his entire penalty back to society is 2 days of community service. It's just not right.
Mayor
It's not
Rahm,
right on any level.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel, very, very dramatic day in the city of Chicago today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you just heard from Mayor Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, his thoughts and feelings, his outrage, his frustration, his anger, um, in regards to the Jussie Smollett and then the charges being dropped and everything else. Um, I would just want to know, how do you feel about everybody else that's not famous? You know, like the everyday people, um, and everything like that. You know, so I want to know if that still applies if you're a person of color, and to use that as a person of color because he's black and because he's gay. Um, what are you really saying? What does that really mean? Statistically, from 2017, this report was released by the Hate Crime Stats, Racial Ethnicity, Ancestry Bias. Um, and it says in 2017, the FBI did this report now. 48.8% motivated by anti-black and or anti-African American bias. The next one that they have is 17.5% stems from anti-white bias. And the last one that we have is 10.9, classified as anti-Hispanic or Latino bias. And you can find this source from FBI.gov, that was released. I believe that CBSN did a story on there about a month ago. They did a story on it. So I would definitely check that out. To say it makes a person that's black and that's gay come make it harder for them. Well, looking at the statistics that the own FBI did, it's already been pretty bad for black people. You know, never mind. You know, I mean, yeah, you have to address the homophobic slurs that was allegedly said during the attack and things like that. But at the core of it, 48.8% is motivated by anti-black or anti-African American. And we're going to explore this. Now, in every city, well, almost every city, well, let me just say my city where I live at, my state where I live at, um, they have a they have what's known as a consent decree. Um, a consent decree is basically when a federal prosecutor oversees um, the police department, whether it be Chicago, whether it be Baltimore, whether it be any other state that carries a a consent decree and things of that nature. Now, I'm going to play a couple of clips kind of explaining it and what the reaction was for it. I do know that Jeff Sessions was totally against, the consent decree. Um, I have my own ideas and reasons why, but I will not share that right now. Right now, I want to get into these clips. So, check it out.
And recent. That is how some critics describe the Chicago Police Department. Today, critics and supporters of CPD are going before a federal judge to say how they believe the department can be reformed. It's the first of two public hearings on a controversial consent decree. CBS 2's Mike Cuccinello joins us now live outside the Dirksen Federal Building with more. Hi, Mike.
Hi, and that first hearing is now underway on the 25th floor of this building right now. No cameras are allowed inside that courtroom, but I can tell you that at least 200 people lined up for a chance to speak or at least observe the proceedings inside. Now, at issue, a proposed consent decree. That's the result of a 225-page report released by the U.S. Justice Department during the Obama administration. But the current administration and U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions have come out against the reform proposals. Despite that, Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan and Mayor Rahm Emanuel say that in the wake of the Laquan McDonald shooting 4 years ago, there is no going back to the old way of doing things in the Chicago Police Department. As part of the proposed decree, members of the public now have the opportunity to make suggestions before a federal judge. The great uncle of Laquan McDonald was one of those in line, among others, hoping to speak.
I would like to see a more grassroots monitoring component in place to assure that the people of the city of Chicago can really benefit from this consent decree.
The Chicago Police Department has tried self-reform for generations and has failed. Over and over again, promises have been made, but they haven't been kept. The promise today will be enforceable in federal court. Think about lawyers at police stations. We stop abuse. We see abuse. We document abuse. I've still seen clients, juveniles, who have been hurt in the police station as recently as 4 months ago. Broken finger, black eye. We're still seeing that. That is not over.
Now, Public Defender Campanelli, who you just heard from there, says that she routinely sees clients that have been roughed up by police, and she says that is the rule, not the exception. Now, of course, there's another side to this. The police department, I've been told by sources, they will have as many as 15 people here that will potentially testify. This police union so far has called the consent decree illegal. At this point, none of the officers have spoken, but we know at least 4 have been selected in the lottery. Reporting live from the Dirksen Federal Building, Mike Cuccinelli.
Everything from use of force training to officer accountability. Just last week, the city and state announced that they had come to terms on the final sticking point, which was a requirement that officers report every time they point their firearm at a person. Just moments ago, during a press conference, Attorney General Lisa Madigan called this day historic.
Today is an historic day for the city of Chicago. This morning, we have filed a proposed consent decree with the federal court that will lead to real and lasting reform of the Chicago Police Department. As you know, it has taken us over a year to get to this day, but it has taken our city a generation to get here.
A similar consent decree was implemented 5 years ago in New Orleans, and the city saw a dramatic drop in police brutality complaints and lawsuits against the department. In addition to stronger oversight, the Chicago Police Decree is also meant to provide better training, support, and equipment for officers.
I want to be clear, the agreement we're submitting today is different and distinct from the approach of other cities in 3 areas. First, it reflects the recommendations of police officers, the rank and file makeup, the police department, and the leadership of the police department. Their input was essential to this document. As I said all along, and I want to repeat, the reform to be effective and to be lasting, it must be done with police, not to police.
The president of the Fraternal Order of Police, the union which represents the majority of Chicago police officers, says the consent decree will make the job more dangerous for officers because they might hesitate to draw their firearms when necessary. A short time ago, the FOP spokesperson said the union is continuing its legal fight to keep the consent decree from being implemented. If it does go into effect, training will begin in January of next year, but the requirement to document every time an officer points his gun or her gun won't go into effect until 6 months later on July 1st. The full decree is available online. Live in the newsroom, my
long history of conducting independent investigations into state and city departments and enacting reform is now watching over the Chicago Police Department. Maggie Hickey is the person who will keep a close eye on CPD.
I think anytime you have another set of eyes watching what you're doing, that tends to make you better. And so I embrace the fact that anything we can do to make CPD better, because we want the Chicago Police Department to be something that the entire city can be proud of.
The decree was handed down by the Justice Department 2 years ago in response to the 2014 shooting death of Laquan McDonald. Former CPD officer Jason Van Dyke is now in prison after being convicted of second-degree murder.
We know what we
we've done over the last 2 years. We know what we have to do going forward.
The consent decree requires the review of use of force by police, track foot pursuits, and document every time an officer points a gun at someone. Anonymous complaints must be investigated. Mayor Emanuel says Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson has been implementing the DOJ's recommended changes over the past 2 years. Emanuel's been in office for 8 years. I asked the mayor why a consent decree was needed to implement changes to CPD. This is your second term, Mayor. I mean, why was it done during your first term? I mean, this is the end of the term. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I don't.
so what I'm saying is, you have a couple of years to have these reforms in place. Why wouldn't they done it at the beginning?
Well, first, I think that if you know anything about policing, you realize that body cameras coming on was something that all the cities across the country started doing in the last 3 years.
Now, every officer has a taser. Every officer has to undergo 40 hours of continued service training and undergo mandatory de-escalation training. Murders and shootings are down. 1,000 new officers have been put on the street, mainly in high-crime neighborhoods.
Good afternoon.
Today, CPD welcomed 66 new recruits to the training academy.
The goal is to create a police force that never stops learning. Because CPD needs officers we want to continue to improve.
So in response to her appointment, Maggie Hickey issued a statement saying, in part, "We are humbled by the trust the city and state have placed in our team to do this important work on behalf of the people of Chicago." Mayoral candidate Toni Preckwinkle said the consent decree is a critical and necessary step toward reforming CPD and the criminal justice system. Her opponent, Lori Lightfoot, who is critical of CPD and the mayor, while president of the police board, said that the consent decree is essential for police accountability and transparency. I'm live at CPD headquarters. Priscilla Raymond, WGN News.
Okay, so you just heard all that and everything. I don't know about nobody else, but I've seen a bit resistance. Trust and believe it was resistance where I live at too. Again, like I said, I'm just giving my interpretation of it. It is my opinion and my opinion only. So please hold on to your feelings. But you just heard all that and everything. The reason why it was started, what it basically is. And like I said, it's implemented in cities all across the United States. So with that being said, I now want to address the comment that Mayor Emanuel made about the swastika. A lot of people do not know the history about the swastika, and I think this next clip that's coming up will do a little bit of justice on the meaning and the interpretation, the original meaning and the interpretation of the swastika. This is by no means a jab at Jews or anything, but truth is truth, and the truth doesn't need validation. So with that being said, let's get into it.
Years across many cultures, the swastika conveyed and still conveys only positive sentiments. To many people's surprise, the swastika can be found worldwide, also integrated in ancient buildings in Israel. It can also be found in some of the oldest churches on earth, in the rock church of Lalibela, Ethiopia. The Buddhists, Jains, and Hindus have used the swastika as a spiritual symbol throughout Asia. Today, it is shunned in the West due to a lack of understanding of the swastika's true origins and meaning, but mainly because it was hijacked by the Nazis, which gave the swastika a tarnished reputation which it does not deserve. Most people are unaware of the integrated use of the swastika entwined with the U.S. and North America's past, mainly with good luck and well-being in the late 1800s and early 1900s. As you can see, the U.S. accepted this symbol long before the Nazis befouled it. Extensively used in the U.S. as a sign of protection, as stated on this emblem. May this emblem protect you well from every bullet, every shell. Also, on the early French and U.S. Air Force planes, the Finland Air Force and military medals, and even on the Finland presidential flag and the U.S. flag, referred to here as a lucky star. In the U.S., the swastika was also used on a corporate level, on Coca-Cola bottles, American Boy Scouts, and even in minting the early 1900 coins and poker chips. Not only was the swastika used by the U.S. military and corporations, but also by Canadian male and female hockey leagues. Before Americans embraced the swastika, the native peoples such as the Navajo used the swastika as their spiritual symbol, seen here on early rugs, carpets, and quilts. Even Jackie Bouvier Kennedy can be seen here in native dress attire. Was even used in landmarks, highway markers, and on the Laguna Dam in Arizona, built in the early 1900s. Also, there's a swastika town in Ontario, Canada, and one in the U.S., Clinton County, New York. The swastika is a symbol of the scientist who created us, which is why we find it on every continent, usually associated with spiritual and peaceful groups. The swastika has been a symbol of peace and well-being for millions of Buddhists, Hindus, and for aliens as well, as it is their symbol of infinity, time, and a symbol of eternity. Discrimination is not only found in Europe and all parts of the U.S., it is also found down under in Australia. Having a peaceful exhibit informing the public of the true meaning of the swastika, surprisingly, the police showed up, harassing the peaceful exhibit, threatening and arresting the leader of the Australian movement, Jarrell, who was taken to jail with no explanation of charges, just pure discrimination.
You see what happened? All right. Yes, they didn't do nothing wrong. Only to show the peace and love.
Banning cannot solve anything. Education is the only way. Children should be taught at school about the beauty of this ancient symbol of peace and harmony, instead of always being referred to as used by the Nazis. This is why Rael, founder and leader of the International Raelian Movement, initiated the idea of a World Swastika Rehabilitation Day, which takes place every year in cities around the world.
Okay, you guys, now you just heard that about the swastika. Now I want to go to my last and final clip, which is explaining why court cases, criminal cases, sometimes get dropped, what the situation may be, and I think Mr. Kersey's law has explained that perfectly, so hold tight. Clip is coming up right now.
If this is a question that you have, then you're in luck, because I'm going to answer that for you right now. My name is Jamal Kersey. I'm a criminal defense and immigration attorney in San Diego, and I've handled everything from small-time petty theft up to DUI, all the way up to high-profile homicide, and all stops in between. And so today I'm going to be answering your question on how a defense attorney gets charges dismissed. So basically what it comes down to is demonstrating to the prosecutor that they are not going to be able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So prosecutors will file charges against a person going into it believing that they'll be able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So maybe in a complaint you'll see a person is charged with a battery, a robbery, a burglary, and grand theft, right? So the prosecutors reviewed the evidence given to them by the law enforcement agency, and upon reviewing that information, those are the charges they decide to file against the client. And so ultimately the defense attorney, in working with his or her client, reviews that information, reviews the discovery with their client. This might be witness statements, photographs, video, lab reports,
If there was any violence, there might be hospital records or, medical records, anything like that. But the defense attorney is forming the defense strategy with his client and trying to come up with a way to demonstrate to the prosecutor that they're not going to be able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So there are some misconceptions in terms of how defense attorneys get charges dismissed. It's not because the prosecutor likes the defense attorney. It's not because the defense attorney knows the judge. It's not any of these things. Ultimately, it comes down to the defense attorney being able to successfully communicate to the prosecutor that they are not going to be able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so sometimes that comes in the way of being able to demonstrate that certain evidence that the prosecutor thinks he's going to be able to get in will not come in. So you've probably heard of motions to suppress evidence. Well, if there was evidence that was unlawfully obtained, in violation of the accused's Fourth Amendment rights, then what can be filed is a motion to suppress. And if the defense is successful in that motion and the main evidence gets thrown out and the prosecutor no longer has a case, then that's going to result in a dismissal. And so sometimes, that process is circumvented by the defense attorney being able to say, hey, you're not even going to be able to get this information into evidence if this case were to go to trial. And if the prosecutor is convinced or agrees with that, then that can result in a dismissal. Or there could be identification issues. The accused ended up getting charged with this particular crime, but there could be shaky identification issues, or there could be witness credibility issues. Maybe the witness had a motive to lie and made something up. But there's all kinds of different things that the defense attorney can come up with in order to demonstrate that the prosecutor is not going to be able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so that's what it takes. At the end of the day, it's the defense attorney's investigation of the facts, so that's using either himself or even hiring an investigator to assist in digging up facts that are going to support the defense's theory of the case. Also doing the legal research to see if there are any solid legal arguments that the defense has in order to, again, show that at the end of the day, if this case is going in front of a jury, prosecutor, Mr. Prosecutor, Ms. Prosecutor, you're not going to be able to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt for X, Y, and Z reasons, and that's why you should dismiss the case. And if it's convincing enough, then that will be the result. Well, I hope this was informative to you. If you're watching this video, it may be because you have been charged with a crime and you have questions. If that's the case, feel free to give us a call at 619-399-3662. I'd be happy to answer all of your questions and see if we might be able to work together. All right, enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, guys, there you have it. That's all I had for you. I thank you for taking the time to sit and watch my videos. I am happy and grateful and humble for that. I want to give credit to Kelsey's Law. I want to give credit to CNN. I want to give credit to Business Insider. And I also want to give credit to Chicago 2 News. So those are my sources. Until next time, guys.